Welcome back to EFD, and if you haven't already, make sure you follow our new Twitter. It's EFD's very own. Are you even a real EFD fan if you're not following it? Anyway, today we are taking a look at the top 10 of the dirtiest teams in football history. 10. Everton. Everton topped the Premier League for the first time in their history in a study into disciplinary records and club offences, proving they are the worst behaved team in England. It was discovered that the Toffees have committed more fouls per game than any other team in the division since the introduction of the Prem in 1992, averaging 1.5 yellow cards per game. With Chelsea and Arsenal coming in second and third, it's important to note that these teams have been in the league since its birth, so have had more time to collect the warnings and earn their place on this hotly contested list. We can't really think of any more excuses for the blue half of Liverpool though, whose players have been given their marching orders on a record 89 times. 8 down to the Premier League's record red card receiver Duncan Ferguson, who got a straight red on 6 occasions, all while wearing the Everton jersey. Ferguson's only rival for the league's all-time bad boy is Richard Dunn, who also saw the red record 8 times, who spent 4 years at Goodison Park. We might consider the English top flight the most physical, but the same study that shamed the Toffees showed that the overall number of fouls have been falling since 1994. 9. Millwall. While Big Sam's team might hold the record at the top of the English divisions, they would go a long way to beat the well-earned, notorious reputation of Millwall, who claim the worst disciplinary record in the top 4 tiers of English football. While the Den's firm of hooliganism have gone down in history as some of the most dangerous fans in the game, the players have shown the same aggression and reckless nature on the field. On average, the South London outfit have a player sent off every 8.5 games. And while Everton can pass the blame on Ferguson and Dunn, the Lions' fierce play was personalised by Kevin Muscat. In 2001, the Australian was branded a lowlife by then Nottingham Forest striker Ian Wright, and became the most hated man in football thanks to his brutal tackling. So where else would he naturally gravitate to? In 2003, he was snatched up by the London club and continued his violent on-pitch antics, being sent off, being fined and banned in his first week for stamping on Watford's Danny Webber. His career went on to become a string of suspensions, disciplinary hearings and even lawsuits. 8. Athletic Bilbao. Much like the Den, Athletic Bilbao's home ground San Mamés was an extremely intimidating place for visiting fans and opposition teams. The Basque club furiously represent the region's culture, identity and pride, in many ways isolating themselves from the rest of Spain. During the 1980s, Bilbao enjoyed their most success, winning the title in 1982-83 and the league and cup double the following season. Their dominance in Spain came under their coach Javier Clement, who encouraged a straightforward anti-tiki-taka style of play called Patipan y Periba, basically meaning get stuck in. Their team boasted infamous hardman Andoni Joey Coitea, aka the Butcher of Bilbao, who most famously severely injured Maradona in a horrific tackle described as the most brutal foul ever delivered in the history of Spanish football. The Butcher reportedly kept the boots he wore in that game in a glass box in his home. The man is a nutter. 7. The Netherlands. It seems harsh to put the country that gave us the whole philosophy of total football on this list, but the same nation that produced the flair and sophistication of Cruyff also gave us one of the dirtiest teams in World Cup history. Consistently, the Dutch have been one of the nastiest teams on the international stage, with the highest number of fouls per game at the last World Cup, thanks to games against Australia and Chile where they committed 44 and 39 fouls each match, more than double your average game would see. In 2006, they competed in one of the most violent games in the tournament's history, during the round of 16 match against Portugal that was coined the Battle of Nuremberg. Fast forward to 2010 and the Orange flared up again. In the World Cup final, the Dutch accepted their inferiority against Spain, who were at the start of their world dominance, and opted instead to fight them more literally. Nigel de Jong escaped a red card despite karate kicking Xabi Alonso, as 9 orange jerseys were given yellows for their aggressive play. The game ended with 46 fouls, and Johan Cruyff denounced his own nation for their dirty and vulgar performances of anti-football. 6. Argentina. Unlike the Netherlands, whose fans can look at with admiration in many ways, Argentina have consistently angered supporters at international level for their lack of sportsmanship. Maradona may have been injured at the hands of the butcher, but he's hardly a figure of virtue, as he was probably one of the least innocent possible victims. In 1990, Argentina reached the World Cup final, despite a relatively untalented team relying on Maradona cheating and spoiling tactics. In 1986, the hand of God pushed them into the semis of the tournament they went on to win. And all the way back in 1966, the Albiceleste racked up 3 yellows and a red for violent behaviour against England. With the upcoming World Cup, we may connect today's Argentina with the excellence of Messi, Aguero and Dybala, but over the tournament's history, they have been one of the world's dirtiest teams. 5. Italy. Having won the World Cup twice before, the nation known for its defensive nous were actually the very reason that red and yellow cards were introduced to the game, earning the Azzurri a place on this list. In a 1962 group stage game between Chile and Italy, tensions were extremely high. After 12 seconds, the first foul had occurred, and within 12 minutes, Italy's Giorgio Farini had seen red, joined in the changing rooms by a teammate at half-time, leaving the Italians down to 9 men. The match descended into a brawl, with police having to break up fights between the opponents on 4 different occasions. Ken Aston, the English referee and World War II veteran, was forced to invent the disciplinary system, as he said he had not been refereeing a football match, but was more like an umpire in military manoeuvres. 4. Barcelona. Messi's Barcelona may be playing the best football we have ever seen right now, but in the 1980s their style was less tiki-taka and more tough tackles. Between 1960 and 1985, the Catalan club managed a lone title as the Liga was completely fought between Athletic Bilbao, Real Sociedad and Atletico Madrid. A collection of talented individuals provided the class, while the rest of the squad brought the violence. Alex Sanko was an intimidating sweeper, Simonson added class to the right wing, while Schuster pulled the strings from the centre of the park. He had revitalised the Barcelona side, but unfortunately for his teammates, the Maverick was never far from trouble. He was sent off unnecessarily and even involved in a training ground punch-up with his own teammate, before he fell victim to the butcher of Bilbao in December 1981. The flair of current Barcelona's possession football was a long way from the brutality of the 1981-82 season, but they were still favourites to win the league. They needed only 7 points from their last 6 games, having secured a better head-to-head against their rivals. Yet they only managed to take 4 points without their blonde angel pulling the strings from midfield, chucking away their lead. You might not associate it with the 5 times Champions League winners, but the Blaugrana were once ugly underachievers. 3. Leeds United. As we all know, the Yorkshire team, who have now settled in mid-table mediocrity in the Championship, were once a dominating force in English and European football. Between 1964 and 1971, Don Revie completely changed the outlook of the Peacocks, working with players such as Billy Bremner, Jack Charlton and investing time in the youth academy that would produce the likes of Norman Hunter. Together they earned notoriety and gained the terraces the charm of Dirty, Dirty Leeds and 2 league titles. Not bad. Norman Bite Your Legs Hunter embodied the thuggish side of United's play, where their defensive pairing of Hunter and Charlton suffered no falls and no legs. Hunter's hard challenges were so destructive that when the defender broke his own leg, Leeds trainer misheard and asked whose leg had he broken this time. Despite their physicality and undisputed aggression, a lot of people argue that Revie should be considered in the same breath as Matt Busby, Brian Clough and Bill Shankly. But his achievements with Leeds are marred by the side's dirty style and the intimidating environment of Ellen Road. 2. Wimbledon. A decade after Hunter was biting legs in Leeds, Wimbledon were the most intimidating team in England and perhaps Europe. Under the management of Dave Bassett, the team labelled the Crazy Gang climbed up 4 tiers in 4 years, into the top flight by 1986, never changing their straightforward Route 1 physical style of play. The infamous Crazy Gang beat the Culture Club of Liverpool in the FA Cup final to earn the underdog silverware, but their style and aggressive nature on the field was practiced off it too. Nigel Winterburn had his boots nailed into the changing room floor, and John Hartson's tracksuit was burned in their first training session. Vinnie Jones famously said, "You either handle the pranks or you were f***ing out." Jones and Fashanu would intimidate every opposing player as they lined up before the game, setting the tone for the next 90 minutes of brutal tackling, physical intimidation and long balls. 1. Canellas 2010. Coming in with the gold medal for this competitive and extremely aggressive list is the Portuguese amateur club Canelas 2010, who have been stamped as the most violent team in world football. Access to the non-professional matches may be limited, but their horrifically violent conduct actually worked wonders in the amateur league. The notorious side went unbeaten for 10 matches in 2016-17. They won 24 out of their 26 league clashes because their teams in their leagues simply refused to play them, rather forfeiting 3 points and a fine than risking their careers on the pitch. While the captain said they just give everything on the field, opponents in the AF Porto Elite Division criticised their dangerous and intimidating tactics that helped them land promotion up to the 3rd tier. So far this season, while analysis and statistics on Portugal's lower leagues are pretty much non-existent, Canelas' 11th place standing and 24 points would suggest that they have cleaned up their act, slightly, with only 5 red cards to show so far this campaign. So those are our 10 dirtiest teams. What do you think, and have we missed any out? Let me know in the comments below. Remember to follow our new EFD Twitter. If you're not, what are you doing? We do personal Q&As there. And why not check out Stat Wars the Champions with Joe and Don Strapsy. And as always, guys, don't forget to like and subscribe.